Hi everyone, and welcome to Worth the Calories, a Great British Bake Off podcast. I'm Matthew.
And I'm Catherine.
So we missed a week. We're really sorry. We were away and then not able to record when we got back. So we're doing a double episode here where we're going to be covering week 8, Pastry, and week 9, Patisserie.
So we're going to have week 89 PastryPatisserie week.
Yes.
Because there's so much difference between pastry and patisserie.
Do you know, I think they did actually capture the difference between them. That one was more delicate and interesting stuff, the patisserie, and they did a range of pastries, to be fair.
Yes, no, I agree. And I think it's sort of kind of almost, if you think of it as the patisserie being levelled up pastry.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go through them quick, because I think, sadly, you know, obviously with all the timings for these things, we've not been able to do any of the baking, so we can talk on our thoughts on the baking. But I think the thoughts on people left in the competition for the final might be an interesting conversation. So
absolutely. Definitely was not a prediction I had at the start of the season.
No, absolutely. I think the outcome of all this is, if you want to help your chances in the bake-off, don't make us like you.
Yeah, absolutely. Our favourites never last.
Basically. Right. The first for the signature was 12 sweet vol au vent.
I don't know. So vol au vent. Is a vol au vent case something you would ever think about taking the effort to make yourself?
Once. It feels like a home ec project. Vol au vent is up there with quiche. A thing you do once and then you ignore, and it's on buffets every so often, but you never actually get it yourself.
Now you see, I really like quiche, but the one reason I don't, because I want quiche, savoury custard. What's not to like? The only reason I never make quiche is because I know your quiche opinions. But yes, my opinions about vol au vent are very similar to your opinions about quiche, and I think it's because I've been served so many beige vol au vent with indiscriminate mush in the middle and a pre-purchased case that's kind of a bit soggy.
Yeah.
Which A, may be why one would make one's own case, but B, when there are sausage rolls in the world, why would you?
When sausage rolls exist, why would you?
Yes. But, to be fair, some of these vol au vent look quite tasty. Of the vol au vent that the baker's made, which is the one that you would most like to eat?
Do you know, I think that the key line, the one that Sandro did, I don't know that he necessarily quite got to deliver what he wanted.
Yes.
But it feels like something that should have that punch of flavour that lime brings.
Yep.
Because some of them, like strawberries and cream, which is this idea. Well, there are strawberries and creams things that exist. I don't think it needs to happen for that. It's not a dessert. It's a nibbly thing with really strong flavours. So something like that, I think, certainly the ones they did really stood out to me. How about you? Did any stand out?
I'm with you. I think the blandness of the vol au vent case lends itself to a punchy flavour in the middle. So I was also quite keen on Sandro's. I was very disappointed in the Anoushis because custard.
Yeah, he tried too hard, I think.
Yes.
And didn't. I got a vibe of didn't practice it.
It's very interesting, actually, because what has become clear to me over these 2 episodes is the person who has really practiced, Shabira. And, you know, you can tell from how she talks about what she's done in preparation for things. I think, in particular, we'll come on to it at the end, the croquant. Like, she's practiced. And I think it's paying off.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so vol au vent, would you have made these? Would you have done me a set of vol au vent?
If we'd had a weekend at home, I would.
Okay.
I don't know what I'd have put in them. Because, you know, like if you look out on the web for vol au vent recipes, they're all pretty much
prawn, salmon.
Exactly. And maybe I'd have done like a Millionaire's shortbread vol au vent.
Oh, that's a nice shout.
So I'd have done a vol au vent case with some nice caramel and then topped with a light ganache.
Because you can make the case slightly salted.
Yes.
To offset the sweetness a bit.
So yes, that's what I'd have done.
Nice.
Maybe I still will. But after I come back from my next business trip.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, the technical was spring rolls. This is a good technical.
Yes.
It involves lots of, a lot of ingredients, small amounts of the ingredients, which was frustrating for buying them. Again, half tablespoon of this, 25 grams of this.
Yeah.
But as a method was really interesting for lots of cooking in different stages, as well as making some pastry and rolling out some pastry, and then deep fat frying.
Yeah.
Deep frying in fat. Frying in deep fat. I don't know what order they...
I think it works in any of those orders. And I think it will work, because I think we should have a communal challenge, because I'll help you with the chopping, to have a go at making these at some point over the Christmas break.
The fact it was only 8, I think, is what really puts me off it as a single challenge for us trying at home, because my understanding, and from what I have seen and in conversations with people, is things like spring rolls and gyoza and dumplings and these sorts of foods. The point is you make a lot at once and you freeze them and have them ready to cook.
Yeah.
So I think it would behoove us to do them, but with a... What?
Good word, behoove.
But to do a large batch of them and have them ready to take to Christmas things.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And not have to use half a teaspoon and 25 grams of...
Yeah. Well, we've got lots of bottles, and for some reason I bought a second bottle of oyster sauce. So we've got 2 bottles of oyster sauce in the cupboard now.
Is that Ocado having gone, oh, you've bought Ocado sauce before.
Quite
you
possibly.
might want some more Ocado sauce.
Quite
some
possibly.
More Ocado sauce, oyster sauce.
Oyster sauce, yes. Yes, subscribing to the AI shopping basket with Ocado does leave us with some interesting cupboards.
Yeah, no, I liked it as a challenge. I think this was a good one, and interesting that by and large everyone did pretty okay.
Yeah,
it was absolutely stuff in the technique that saw them out, about whether they were filling them right, whether they had too much air or too much water that then didn't cook enough in the fryer.
Yeah, I think I have some sympathy for the filling, because unless you have I think I would have struggled deciding how much to fill it with.
Yeah.
Without having seen how much you should fill it with.
Yeah.
Because I'm always a little nervous of overfilling these things, because you could just end up with filling all over your deep fat.
Yeah.
So I would probably, like Maxie, have underfilled a bit.
And I wonder if they were given more ingredients than were needed for the filling.
Yes, because they get proper mean with the technicals towards the end of the season. I mean, understandably, because actually, by this point, because everyone's pretty competent, it's quite hard to distinguish between them on the technicals.
Yeah, so.
But, yes.
But
yes, we should do that.
Yeah.
And we should also try it, if the technique works, I'd quite like to try it with different fillings.
Okay.
I can see a sort of spicy minced beef filling being quite nice inside. Do you know what I mean? I can see how, if we can work that as a technique, I can see that there are different, or maybe some char siu pork.
Yeah.
And just like see if we could make some spring roll-esque starters to our flavour that we
nice.
like.
Yeah. I really like the pastry element of this, because it involved obviously making the pastry and vesting it, and then you cut it into sections, into the sizes you want, roll them out into discs, and then you put the discs together and roll them out again to sort of get the size you want. And then when you fry them for about 30 seconds on each side. So you're only frying one disc, or only one disc has actual contact with the heat at that time. And then you take them out and separate them and keep them.
It's interesting.
It's a really clever method. Yeah,
it's not something that you do intuitively.
No, absolutely.
So I'm interested to give it a go with you.
Yeah, terrific. Right, our final one was the 3D storybook pie scene.
Are we on Junior Bake Off? Sorry.
Which, yes, is back to these sorts of ones. What would you have done?
Oh, goodness me. I'd have done, I'm going to pretend that my baking skills are up to this. I'd have done Howl's Moving Castle.
Yeah?
I love Howl's Moving Castle. It's my favourite children's book ever.
Nice.
I'm not sure what I've put in the castle. Maybe it would be a moving castle fish pie. There we go.
You'd have made a moving castle with all sorts of turrets and sure.
Yeah. I'd have done a different fruit flavour in each turret. It would have started with your with savoury at the bottom, and then something plain like mashed potato in the middle, and then we'd gradually transition into desserts. So you have to eat from the bottom upwards.
Very nice.
Absolute rubbish. I'm totally not equipped to make that. What storybook would you make?
I'm not sure they count as storybooks. I think they're educational learn to read books, but I have very fond memories of the 1, 2, 3 and Away series.
Okay.
The Village with Three Corners and Johnny Yellow Hat and I think Billy Blue Hat and so on.
Yeah.
And it would have been very easy to make a village with 3 corners with 3 pies representing the different houses in different colours.
That's much more sensible than my suggestion.
But when we talk storybooks from childhood, that's one of the things that always comes to mind because we did a lot of it at the first school I went to in the very small village. So,
nice.
Which might have been their only books, maybe. So.
Fair enough. I would say that they were definitely not part of my childhood.
They're very modern. So
shush, rude.
These were fine. I think the ones that everyone made.
To be honest, because it's been a couple of weeks ago now, I can't actually remember what everyone made.
So Shabira got Star Baker that week, and she did Jack and the Beanstalk.
Okay, nice.
And I remember she struggled with a beanstalk, only had one growing up, and had different layers to it. But again, it was. I think this is one of those challenges that no one quite got or quite delivered on because everyone tried different things. There were 2 caterpillars. Or one was supposed to be a dog and one was a caterpillar, which was a nice idea, but because they were so big, they were just large lumps of meat.
Oh, and Sandro's was a bit grim, wasn't it?
So...
It was all a bit soggy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose, for me with these things, I wish they'd just let them make a nice decorated pie. Yeah. Rather than having to bring the sort of the storybook decoration element in, because I think that distracts from the baking.
Yeah, agreed. People try too hard or do things that then don't work with the brief doesn't actually work with the whatever you're making.
Yeah, I think for me the main purpose should be to bake something amazing. Mm-hmm. And then if there's some theme to the decoration, that should be secondary rather than let's plot out what it should look like and then try and make our baking fit that.
Absolutely. So that was week 8. Week 9 was Patisserie, which started off with mini Charlottes. Mini being small.
It's really interesting to me because I think for you and me, if we said let's divide this up, one of us does pastry week and one of us does patisserie week in terms of bakes, I am totally the pastry week option.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The sort of the delicate precision of patisserie week, not my bag whatsoever.
Which, we might be overselling it. It might be my bag, but
no, but you are really precise, and I think you take joy in doing this sort of complicated thing.
The technical. It's a shame I've not had time because I really like this technical. But when we come to it, so
I am going to ask you to make it for me at Christmas.
I really like the idea of it. No, so mini Charlottes, a really good idea. I like cute. This as a lot. They've done Charlottes in different ways over the years, and the idea of doing this is something that exactly as they say, shop window, make it look really pretty and taste really nice.
Yes. Yeah. Amazing. I do think that some of the bakers perhaps needed to refresh their definition of the word mini.
Well, it's surprising, stroke confusing. So Sandro made ones that were too big.
Yes.
So you look at them and you go, they're too big. But his pans were too big. So at some point he went, I'm going to bake these in this size of thing and cut them to this size. And surely at some point, someone or he should have gone, they're a bit big. Perhaps I'll do them in the smaller ones.
I suspect he'd read the brief, he'd made a plan. And then all of his planning from that stage onward were moving on from his plan rather than the brief. It's like when I used to teach, and it was always like, keep going back to the exam question and make sure what you're doing is actually fitting the exam question rather than your memory.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but it's just because he put the batter in the pan and baked it.
Whereas you could have had smaller.
You could have just had smaller pans.
Absolutely.
Like, it's not like this was so hard to make. Or it was cutting things down to size, and I don't know. There's something in this that it feels like he's missed something somewhere, or it wasn't defined as well as it should have done.
Possibly, yeah, because we don't see what the brief that the bakers actually get is. But if the word mini was in the title, I'd have expected something small.
I'd have gone and stood outside a non-financial rule-breaking Patisserie Valerie shop, the name of which escapes me now. I can't think of any, but fine. And just had a look in their window and gone, hey, can I just put my tape measure up against your cakes and just see how big are they? What is mini?
Absolutely. Because to me, the idea of a mini is something where if you went to a restaurant and you ordered and you had a dessert that was a trio of desserts, the kind of size that would come out at that point, that for me is a mini dessert. That's how I would picture it. Whereas if I had 3 things the size of what Sandra provided, I'm not saying I'd complain, but I'd feel very ill at the end of the meal.
See, a trio I would define as micro.
Oh, really?
Like, that's the point. You're getting 3 that add up to 1, and you think of a dessert. A dessert is, a piece of brownie. It's not a whole, giant thing. Maybe.
Bake Off, we need a definition here, because clearly Matthew and I also have a differing perception.
Can we have an
is.
international standard definition of mini when it comes to desserts?
Do we have to say, is this a Sandro mini, a Matthew mini, or a Catherine mini?
So the technical was Charlotte Hazelnut and Raspberry Vertical Tarts.
So I'd be delighted for anyone in a restaurant,
right?
Or if I'm visiting their house, or just here at Christmas, please, my love, to serve me one of these. They look amazing. Yeah,
it's such a good idea, and it is verging on stuff that we see from the professionals, but they would just do this,
yes,
and probably have had practice or knowledge to do it.
They'd just be producing 40 in half an hour.
Well, exactly, exactly. What's the blast freezer? Things like that. Yeah. We've complained about desserts in restaurants at the moment being absolutely homogenous, and just you get the same 4 or 5 in every single restaurant, and then maybe one that's different.
Yeah. If
someone said they were serving me a chocolate and raspberry mousse tart, but it came like this, I would totally accept it being the same everywhere if everyone was putting their own spin on it in this way.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, this is a nice, good dessert I would want in a restaurant.
Yeah, beautiful.
I love that they weren't so descriptive in their directions that it caused a bit of confusion.
Poor Sandra.
When they said cut in half, I did have a thought in my head of, is someone going to slice them in half?
Because it seems really obvious when you've already seen the output.
As soon as you've seen it, yeah.
But, yeah.
Again, it speaks to the editing, I think, that he couldn't look at everyone else's and figure out what was going on.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
And maybe the word vertical wasn't in the title, because that would have helped give it away as well, I think, maybe.
Yeah. I think he pulled it back pretty well, but you could tell he was a bit gutted.
Yeah. And it is that thing, it's one mistake there.
Yes.
Which everyone else seemed to have gotten. So I don't know whether it's just intuitive and there's 2 ways to do it and everyone else picked the right way. Other people got to see other people's.
And I think with technicals, again, sometimes it's about how quickly people read the instructions. And again, sometimes I think it's whether they're... And I totally do this when I'm cooking, so I'm not going to castigate anyone for this, but whether it's they're cooking from their memory of what they thought the instructions said, or actually going back and looking at the instruction again each time.
Yeah. One of the things I love about the paprika wrap that I use for baking is that it keeps your screen on. And you can even tap the section of the directions you're reading and it highlights it. So I'm like, I'm at this stage, so it's going to keep on next to me. I don't have to keep going back to it with fingers covered in batter or something.
Yeah. Nice.
A good challenge.
It was a good
challenge. It's the sort of challenge that they could have done at any stage.
What, any stage in the weeks?
Yeah. I think it would have absolutely thrown some people, but wouldn't it have been interesting to see the different takes on it early on?
Oh, see, I feel that it was the right end of the competition to have something this challenging.
Okay.
Because I think every year, and this is possibly deliberately so, they focus on having a range of contestants for a range of demographics, rather than necessarily they're all quite as competent to each other baking.
Right.
And I'm not sure I'd have wanted to see some of the earlier departees break apart
right.
as much as fair. Being faced with something this difficult was. So I'm happy that they're leaving the really hard technicals for the ones that have made it through to the second half of the competition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a good one. It was interesting that it was the big differential between them. Obviously, Sandra made a mistake somewhere, so his ended up the wrong side and a bit messier. But the biggest differential was how well they folded in the whipped eggs to the chocolate, and whether they turned it into a ganache or kept it as a mousse.
And again, that's quite hard because if you've seen the output and you know what consistency the output is supposed to be, you know what you're aiming for.
Yeah.
Whereas I can imagine it might be tempting to go too far and end up with a ganache on the basis that you know that you're thinking, well, whatever I produce has got to hold itself within this shape.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
And if you served a vertical chocolate ganache and raspberry tart, that is fine as well. It's not like chocolate ganache is not served as something anyway.
No, and you might want some runny cream on the top of it just to loosen the texture a little bit, but it'd still be tasty.
Yeah. Okay, it'll be an interesting one to try.
Yes.
Keep an eye on our Instagram if we ever get to this in spring rolls.
Yes. I'm not sure that would actually combine well as a. Well, I'd eat it, but I'm not sure it's necessarily a cohesive meal. But
Absolutely.
Yes.
Right, the showstopper was croquant.
I'm a little confused as to how this is different from the croquant wedding cake thing that they do. It probably isn't that different. It's just biscuits instead of profiteroles.
Yeah, I think so. I think I can see this as a biscuit structure that you use as a centerpiece for anything, because we've done biscuit structures all the time. You know, people have made pubs and things out of biscuits. So yeah. But everyone was it was quite a nice one because, as we've said with previous challenges, it just allows them to put whatever they want on it. It wasn't so specific of a storybook or something. It's make something in your imagination.
Exactly, and this, I think this is the exact thing I was trying to get at when we were talking about the storybook pies. The main is the bake, and then once you've got that bake structure, you can put a straight spin on it to put some kind of decorative factor in.
The fact that this said it had to be 60 centimetres or 30 centimetres, or how it, the height was the thing they were looking for, and then the rest of it was biscuits and design.
Exactly.
Perhaps for the pie scene, it should have just been, you need to make 3 pies and they need to form a narrative between them, or they each need to have different fillings, or
exactly just a little bit
a looser,
different phrasing.
Brief, fine. Thoughts on what people made?
Okay, I'm just going to start with my favourite, Shabira.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Is this the first time she's talked about being a computational chemist? What was it? I mean, this says cardiovascular research associate, but she talked about being a computational biologist.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I think it is, because I remember when she said that, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was also like, check my assumptions, because she seems really sweet. and I don't know why I assume that scientists aren't really sweet, but,
It absolutely fills in that gap of she practices and does everything with precision and
she's super clever.
Figures it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome. Amazing. I have nothing more than to say, but this was also where she said this was about she said something like, "Oh, it worked on the 4th time I did it."
Yeah,
I mean, this girl has worked to prepare for
and
this
presumably
competition.
made changes at each time.
Yes,
as you do with data. Okay, that hasn't quite worked. What if I?
Yes.
Yeah, good on her.
Amazing.
Yeah, really, really impressed with that. We had Sandro doing his where it started and how it's going.
Yeah.
So from Africa to London. I can't remember where in London he's from.
I thought it was a little clumsier, but I still thought it was quite lovely.
Yeah, it's that thing of, I don't think his presentation is his strongest part.
No.
Where we've had people who have gotten to the final on presentation. His is clearly on the bake that he delivers. And it's a shame, because that could have been really artistic and really nice. And because he doesn't necessarily lean in that way, perhaps he should have done something simpler that he could deliver on more precisely. I think it all adds up to I'm not convinced of Sandra's decision-making.
I think a bit more time and a bit more polish and he will be outstanding. But I think, yeah, you're right. I think sometimes his decision-making is not 100% the best. But I think the fact that he had these bigger biscuits and it was focused on the bake, my impression from the judging was probably one of the most pleasurable to eat.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Which, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a baking show. It's not an arts and crafts show.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
and I think that's done well for him.
Yes, I agree. Nice.
And we had Janusz, who did Brighton Pride, which was also a little clumsy.
Yes, and I think the problem here was, I mean, again, it was fun. I didn't dislike it. It was a fun thing. It just wasn't it was neither as polished as Shabira's, nor did it taste as good as Sandro's.
No, absolutely.
So I think he had a bit of a double whammy there.
Yeah, and because he came in, you know, everyone talked about him from the beginning as really strong, really good, expect him to go really far, and he has gone really far.
Yes.
And he even seems pleased with how he's done, so
Yeah.
good on him. He also showed what he could do very early on.
Yes.
And I feel like we're still seeing that same thing.
Yes, he's not changed in quality as much as perhaps some of the others have.
He had stuff he was really good at, and he's always done that, which might speak to, you know, in the beginning he wasn't getting feedback, he was just being told it was really good.
Yeah.
Whereas other people got critiqued and found like, Shabira had a couple of weeks where her flavours really let her down. She tried too hard, and now her flavours are amazing. To the extent we have the comments about, peanut and funny flavours, and you always give us funny flavours that don't work and so on because it was peanut and fruit. And it's like, no, that's a thing. Just because it's not a thing in your world, it's a bit...
Yeah,
you know,
and I think, as they said in the judging, they now know that they should just trust her sense with the flavours. Yeah. I think with Janusz also, perhaps the things that they were doing at the start of the season was stuff that is in his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
I mean,
fair.
It's going to sound... I am totally custard obsessed. But the fact that he couldn't... the fact that he couldn't pull off a custard last week for his... the week before for his vol au vent filling. I'm like, that's a core technique, surely.
Yeah, because he was trying to incorporate it and hold stuff up, and it wasn't the right choice for that. But I like seeing him pleased with how far he went.
I agree, because it's not a sad thing to...
No.
I mean, obviously, everyone wants to make the final.
Yeah, and win.
But you should still be proud of getting that far, and he was. So
absolutely.
That's nice.
And I think he is clearly a big enough personality. I think he will be one of the people we remember from Bake Off and who gets to do the shows and things. So
absolutely.
Yeah, good. And we had Abdul doing To the Stars with his rocket ship.
Abdul could win the whole thing. Well, no, but I mean, Shabira's blatantly going to win.
Oh, Catherine.
Catherine,
God, don't say things. Yeah.
Sorry, Shabira, if I've given you the curse of Bake Off death by saying how much I like you.
Bake Off death. If you die in the Bake Off, you die in the real world.
Oh, no, we'd have heard. That would have been a thing.
It's really interesting. Abdul, we haven't mentioned much. Occasionally he's done things that that we've enjoyed, or that we've wanted to comment on. Abdul missed a week because he was ill, which fine, no one went out, so that's not a thing. With the exception of last week, where there were only 5 of them, so you have to be either one of the favourites or one of the bottom. And this week, where there's only 4 of them, so you have to be one of the favourites or one of the bottom. He has never been a favourite, and he's never been in the bottom.
If someone was coaching you on how, like as a sports competition, how to do the best at Bake Off, stay in the middle, make your bid at the end. Yeah.
It's a really interesting... I'm going to be so fascinated to watch how he does in the final, because it means he's gotten feedback on how things have gone, but he's not had the learning that... I know I go on about this, but I think you're saying about coaching and how to do well on Bake Off, I think struggling in weeks 3 and 4 is a really big asset. There's still people who are going to go out. The challenges are a bit harder, and there's time to be getting feedback as well and getting actual critiques on what you're doing and to learn, okay, this thing that I like doing because now I've settled in and gotten used to it, actually I need to rein that in, or I need to change what I do or something. So he's never had that, but he's also never had the complacency of, I did really well, which, to be fair, Shabira, every time she says blank slate, she does not have that complacency either. So bravo her, bravo. I'm really interested to see how he does in the final, because it's such a unique position. I don't think anyone's ever had this.
No. And thank goodness I didn't place any bets at the start of the season. But I would not have put money on this being the final 3.
No.
I'd have put money on Janusz and Maxi being in the final 3.
Okay.
And I don't know who else I'd have put in there, but it wouldn't have been the 3 that we've got now.
I would have said Sandro, Shabira, Janusz and Maxi. 3 of those 4 would have gone through, and it would have been a semi-final that was really hard to judge. As I think about it, possibly Maxi would have been the one, because she was really good, but I think everyone else is very strong at their things. So at this point where you're like, I need to live on this thing that I know how to do really well. But who knows? And she came up a cropper a bit, had a not good week. Which is a real shame. But I don't begrudge someone getting to that. The fact that Abdul's in the final, despite never having excelled quite as much as others, but having never been in trouble, means he's consistently good.
Yeah, fair play to him.
He clearly can do what he's doing. Other people are doing it better, week by week. But this week, he excelled in the best of the best for the final 4. So,
awesome.
Bravo,
Looking forward to the final.
It's going to be really interesting to see. I don't think we should say what we think, because...
Too late.
I'm not superstitious, but also... Yeah. I think it's a really good group to get through. I think they each have their own particular skills. And they each have they're just a delight to watch. Like, it's a really good group to get through, and I'm sort of rooting for all of them. I don't think I will mind who wins.
When am I going to get to watch it? That's the question.
It's on Netflix from Friday.
Yes.
So over the weekend you'll have to watch it in Arizona.
I'll have to persuade my friends that they really want to watch Bake Off. They might. Who knows?
Well, if not, log in on your device, download it, watch it on the playback.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, just I'm really excited for the final.
Okay. So we'll probably be a little bit late with that one again because of travels, but we'll make sure we do a proper in-depth and our thoughts on final challenges. We always have thoughts on final challenges.
Yeah, let's not have a pit of fire.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Will they go for something achievable or something ridiculous?
Yep.
We'll see. See you next week for that one.
Bye.